Alright, so this problem, just so you know, is no different than if I were to write this as 6y squared minus 4 equals 5y. Okay? So algebraically, so red equation here, what would you do in that one? So set it equal to 0 in some form. Okay, fantastic. So over here then, we're going to subtract 5 sine of x's from both sides. So that's going to give me 6, oops, that's not going to give me a blue. That's going to give me 6 sine squareds of x minus 5 sines of x minus 4 equals 0. Okay? And then you said factor. Okay? Man, mean old math teachers making you factor day 1 coming back, example number 1. What does this bad boy factor to be? Do we agree with 3 sine x minus 4 and 2 sine x plus 1? Okay? Now, what if we were unsure about 3 sine x minus 4 and 2 sine x plus 1? What could we do to fix or to check it? Okay? Now, I grew up on something called FOIL. First outers, inners, last. You grew up on double distributive. Okay? Both meaning the same thing. Okay? So first, 3 sine times 2 sine gets me 6 sine squared. That's what I needed. Outers get me positive 3 sine x. Inners get me negative 8 sine x. Add those two together, I get negative 5 sine of x. Last gets me negative 4. Okay? So it does work out. Now what do I have to do? Now that I've got it in factored form. Set both factors then to 0. So 3 sine x minus 4 equals 0, and 2 sine x plus 1 equals 0. Now what? Add 4. Divide by 3. Right? Where on the unit circle is the sine of x equal to 4/3? Why not? What's the range that it needs to be in? The biggest sine can get is? What's that? 1. What's the smallest sine can get? Negative 1. Okay? So sine has to be between negative 1 and positive 1. 4/3 is 1.3, which is outside that acceptable interval. So this one is not possible. Okay? I would say, yeah, it doesn't matter either way because I wouldn't look at that as the answer. You know what I mean? Okay? Okay? So then over here, I would subtract 1. So then that would give me 2 sine of x equals negative 1. Then I would divide both sides by 2. And that would give me the sine of x equals negative 1/2. So where is the sine of x equal to negative 1/2? No. 11 pi over 6 I like. because remember, sine is y's. You were giving me x's. 11 pi over 6 I like, and 7 pi over 6. And so those are my answers. Yeah, buddy? Yeah, buddy. All right. Let's kick it up a notch. What's wrong with this one? Just from your first initial look at it, what don't you like about it? Two different trig functions. Okay, so first off, I got to get it so that there's one trig function to deal with. Okay, so secant is what? Secant is 1 over cosine. So this first one is really 3 over cosine. Yes? Algebraically, that would look like 3 over y minus y equals 2. Okay? Now, my big question to you is this. And it's okay to say that you don't. Okay? That's a totally okay thing. We're in the free sharing space. Okay? The safe zone, if you will. Looking at that red one, what's wrong with it? Or what don't you like about the red one? Fractions. Who doesn't like fractions in this room? I can't raise my hand because I like them. Okay? Alright? But more than likely, I'm guessing you have a 99.44% disdain for fractions. Okay? So, when you see fractions, what's your option in an equation? If you don't like fractions, to get rid of them, right? So then you got to get rid of the fractions. If you don't like fractions, get rid of them. And to get rid of them, you got to multiply by the common denominator of them all, or by whatever the denominator is that gets rid of it. Okay? So over here in the red, I would multiply by my denominator, and I would multiply the whole equation by y. So I'd have to go into all 3 parts to multiply by that. Okay? If I'm looking at blue, what am I going to multiply by? I'm going to multiply by the cosine of x all the way through. Okay? So 3 times cosine is 3 cosine. Divided by cosine is just 3. Cosine times cosine is cosine squared. 2 times cosine is 2 cosine. Okay? Now what? Put what on the right? Everything. Moving and why do we move everything to the right and not to the left? Because we like positive squared terms. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to subtract 3 and add cosine squared. Now what? Now we're going to factor. Give you a second to factor that out. Shout it out when you got it. Hopefully somebody on the interwebs is shouting it out right now, even though it's not posted on the interwebs yet. Anybody get it yet? We got him. Do we agree with cosine of x plus 3 and cosine of x minus 1? Yes? First, multiply together to be cosine squared. That's good. Outers is negative cosine. Inners is 3 cosine. Add them together, we get positive 2 cosine. That's good. Last is negative 3. Good to go there. Okay? Then I set my factors equal to 0. Then I solve those. So I get cosine of x equals negative 3, and I get cosine of x equals positive 1. Yes? Okay. So cosine equaling negative 3. Not possible. That's outside my acceptable range of values. Okay, so that's a not possible. Cosine equaling positive 1. 0, right? Now, what about 2 pi? Why not? Do you remember why? I didn't write it down on here, but remember that we solve it over the interval 0 included to 2 pi excluded. Okay? So that we just get that one full lap around the unit circle. So that's why we don't include 2 pi. Whoop, tap the brakes. That's why we don't include 2 pi there. Okay?
So that's the only answer?
Yes.
How about when it's like squared or supposed to?
But the other one doesn't work out because cosine, there's nowhere that cosine could be negative 3. But we could have also gotten, like if this would have been, if I would have gone, let's go side note here. If this would have been cosine squared of x equals 1, right? You would have square rooted both sides. So if I take the square root of this side, I would get cosine of x. And if I take the square root of this side, I would get plus or minus 1. Okay? Because I'm taking an even root when solving. So then it would have been 0 and pi. Okay? So you can't go by your standard algebraic, there's got to be 2 answers for this one because the degree was 2. Because if I have that case, then, and it's like plus or minus 1/2, now I'm talking I got 4 answers. Okay, so it doubles the 1 answer. So, okay? Good? All right. Try that one on your own. Off the start, what don't you like? The cosecant part? What is cosecant? It's 1 over sine. So this is really 4 over the sine of x minus the sine of x equals 3. Right? So what are you going to multiply by? By sine of x. And that's going to give you 4 minus sine squared equals 3 sine. Yes? Left or right am I going? Going to the right. So that gives me 0 equals sine squared of x plus 3 sine of x minus 4. Yes? Factorable. Sine of x plus 4, sine of x minus 1. Set my factors equal to 0. Can sine of x ever be negative 4? Nope. Where is sine of x equal to 1? Pi over 2. So that's my only answer. Yeah, buddy? Okay. Now, there are out there in your folders and on the line, there is a wonderful 5.1 green sheet that we gave you before break. There's a 5.1 pink sheet, which has 2 sides on it for extra practice. All of these now are on It's Learning, all answer keys and all blank copies of that. I was informed that they weren't on there, and it's a good thing that they're on there now. There's also on your purple half sheet, there are some 9 through 55 odd problems from the textbook. All great problems to help you get back into that thinking of, oh yeah, I got a test on this stuff in 6 days. Next week, Tuesday. No, just on 5.1 and 5.2. No, we're doing 5.1 and 5.2, 5.5 and 5.6 for the fun. Okay? If you need extra copies, they're always up here on the cart of all that fun stuff.